Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're not just looking back at ancient Rome, we're putting the official story on trial. The source material we're looking at makes a stunning case that the history of the Roman Empire, the very foundation of the West, might not be history at all.
So let's just ask the big question right up front. What if the story you've always been told is just that, a story, a carefully constructed narrative? The evidence we're about to see is startling, and it all starts with a very strange case of historical déjà vu. All right, so the first piece of evidence in the case against the official timeline is this, frankly bizarre situation. A pivotal moment in Roman history, the assassination of its great leader, didn't just happen once. According to the records, it seems to have happened twice, in almost perfect, literal detail.
I mean, just look at this. It's almost a carbon copy. In two different time periods, you have a ruler named Gaius Julius Caesar. One we call Caesar, the other Caligula. Both are stabbed to death by daggers. Both plots are organized by a man named Cassius. In the aftermath of both murders, an attempt to restore the Republic. The source doesn't call this a coincidence, it calls it a doubling. The same exact story, just dropped into the official history twice.
And if you thought that was strange, well, the rabbit hole goes way deeper when we stop looking at stories and start looking at something more concrete, the numbers. Because when you actually examine the lifespans of these famous Roman rulers, a pattern starts to emerge that feels anything but natural.
Let's take a look at the Julians. You got Caesar, Augustus, and Caligula. Do these dates look random to you? Because the source we're looking at says they're anything but. There are all these echoes and numerical relationships that feel far too neat, far too perfect for the real, messy chaos of human life. They feel designed.
And it gets even more obvious with the Claudians. I mean, check this out. Nero's birth year, 37 AD, is the exact same year Tiberius dies. The numbers just keep repeating and reflecting each other. So you have to ask, are these the random dates of real lives, or are they just data points in a manufactured story?
And that brings us to the core argument from our source, and it's pretty blunt. For naturally occurring number sequences, such conspicuous repetitions cannot exist. In other words, this kind of thing just doesn't happen in real history. The only explanation that's left is that these dates weren't lived, they were written.
Okay, so maybe you're thinking, numbers can be a coincidence. Fair enough. But what about a deadly pattern that repeats with the precision of a Swiss watch? A cycle of imperial murder that feels less like history and more like a script.
Let's walk through this, because it's wild. In 41 AD, Caligula gets murdered with daggers. Fast forward exactly 27 years to 68 AD. Nero, he dies by a dagger. Now wait for it. Another exact 27 years later, 96 AD, and Domitian is murdered with a dagger. You see the pattern here, right? 3 emperors, 3 daggers, all separated by precisely 27 years. Is that a coincidence, or is that a schedule?
So we've seen these weird story loops, these suspicious numbers, but our source claims these aren't just random glitches in the matrix. Nope. They're all part of a much, much bigger blueprint. A hidden structure that seems to organize the entire timeline of the Roman Empire.
And the key to seeing this blueprint, apparently, is a famous historical headache, the Sacular Games. Officially, they were supposed to happen every 110 years, but if you look at the actual recorded dates, they're all over the place. It makes no sense. Historians have been scratching their heads for centuries. But what if they've been using the wrong number all along?
The source says the real number, the master key to unlocking the code of Roman history, is 95.
And here's how it supposedly works. It's incredible. You start the clock in 96 AD with a new dynasty, go forward about 95 years, bam, 193 AD, the Severan dynasty begins. Another 95 years or so, boom, 284 AD, the Tetrarchy begins. It just keeps going, like clockwork, marking every major power shift right up until the very end of the Western Empire. It's like history was written in chapters, and each chapter was exactly 95 years long.
So this is where it all clicks into place. You take that 95-year master cycle we just saw, you add that spooky 27-year curse cycle, and what do you get? A total pattern of 122 years. And here's the kicker.
According to the source, when you use that 122-year pattern, those messy, irregular dates for the secular games, they suddenly line up. Perfectly. The whole puzzle snaps together, but only if you accept that history was built on this secret blueprint. So, we have story loops, we have numerical patterns. It's a compelling case. But there's one last nail on the coffin, a final piece of evidence involving one of the most famous documents from that entire era, and it has a very dark cloud hanging over it.
We're talking about the Res Gestae, the deeds of the divine Augustus. It's supposed to be Augustus's own resume, basically. But as our source points out, it's, well, a nasty piece of propaganda. But the really shocking part isn't what's in it, it's when we found it. The very first copy was only discovered in the mid-1500s.
Let that sink in for a second. One of the most important foundational texts of the entire Roman Empire was just gone for 1,500 years. And then it just so happens to pop up right when people are starting to write the official history we know today. You have to wonder, is a document found that late really a historical record? Or is it a historical invention? When you see it all laid out like this, the repeating stories, the impossible numbers, the conveniently discovered documents, you have to ask a hard question. Is the history we all learned in school a record of what really happened? Or is it just the story that survived? And if it is just a story, well, that leaves the most unsettling question of all. Who was the author?